Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here on Atheism versus Agnosticism. I received a donation with this question. I did a couple of videos, or maybe it was just one video, called Atheism a Mental Disease? Is atheism a mental disease? Because Mike Campchario, or something like that, I think that's pretty close to his name, said that atheism is a mental disease. And my assertion was the opposite, that theism is a mental disease, a virus of the mind, according to Richard Dawkins. Something which infects one mind and multiplies and spreads out in many directions and infects other minds, just like a virus infecting a cell and then multiplying out in every direction and infecting other cells. That is theism. But what about atheism versus agnosticism? Now, A is Greek for non. Like Tom is Greek for divide, so an atom is a non-dividable. An atom can't be divided. An agnostic is to know. So an agnostic does not know. An atheist says there is not a deity. They say there is no theist. No, they say that there is no deity. Let's see, Hitchens points out that agnostics are atheists because they can't bring themselves to believe in a God. They say, I'm not sure. And Hitchens says, that's all I need. They're an atheist. That means they don't believe in a God. If they say they're not sure, there may or may not be one, that means they don't believe that there is one, and they're an atheist. So he'll bring it all right into his camp just like that. And that's fine, I'm willing to do that. But on the other hand, there's a difference between recognizing that there is no evidence and that it is an anthropomorphic fairy tale. We're just projecting human characteristics on reality as a whole, on the whole frickin' universe. It's bad enough when we project human characteristics on things like animals, and like Rocky and Bullwinkle. That's anthropomorphism onto animals. But to project it onto the universe, and to say that the universe that someone had to cause it, and someone has to direct it, is just bizarre. The mind, goals, values, thoughts, feelings, emotions, life, this is something that has occurred on a small speck of dust near this star we live by, and probably has occurred on other specks of dust elsewhere. But why do we think that this phenomenon of a mind with goals and desires that has evolved on a speck of dust, why do we think that that phenomenon must also be responsible for the entire universe? Isn't that the stupidest thought you can imagine? That is absolutely ridiculous. Now, to say that you're not sure on this subject, you don't know whether there's a human-like mind or thought process governing the entire universe, is utterly bizarre. It's better than the theistic position, but not by much. The problem with the agnostic position is that they're willing to grant credence to absolutely incredible claims, astonishingly improbable claims, and they're willing to suspend judgment on them. So an agnostic is a fence sitter in one of the most important subjects in all of human history. An agnostic says, I'm not going to judge the situation on its merits, I'm going to suspend judgment, because the situation on its merits obviously says that there's not a God. There's no evidence for a God. People can provide emotionalism, but nothing more to assert that there's a God. So an agnostic is an offensive fence sitter. Offensive to me, anyways. It offends me. And an atheist is someone who recognizes the truths in the case, that there is no God, that we've evolved here, that life is valuable and beautiful, even if there isn't some fairy tale man in the sky that's created all of us. The people always say, without religion there will be no numinous, there will be no beauty, there will be no value to life. Music, poetry, love, all these things are out the window. I'll just remind you, there is not a God. There is poetry, love, and beauty, and other stuff like flowers and candy. Lovely stuff. And there's not a God. So recognizing that there's not a God won't do away with those things. Obviously, they exist without a God. They exist in reality. We don't need a God for them to exist. So to say that denying religion and telling people their religions are stupid fairy tales is going to destroy beauty and so on, no, it's going to make more beauty possible. Instead of people sitting around arguing whether Jesus really did float up into the sky, called the Ascension, I think, or whether or not there was a virgin birth, or whether or not Muhammad married his girl, 9-year-old girl, too young. Instead of sitting around arguing about those sickeningly ridiculous things, we could talk, for example, about the Hubble Space Telescope, or the nature of magnetism, or whether Einstein's theory of gravity is altogether correct, or relativity, I should say, in his explanation of gravity, or his theory's explanation of gravity. Yeah, we won't go into all of that. But we can do a lot of stuff without there being a God. We don't need a God. And the agnostics are sitting on the fence in a very important situation here. I'm willing to take them into my party like Chris Hitchens does, and just say, Christopher Hitchens, pardon me, and just say they don't believe in a God, fine, they're atheists. I'm willing to do that, but I'm afraid some of them, if they have some sort of an emotional situation in their life, or if their loved one dies in a car accident one day, they'll fall to their knees and start praying because they never had the conviction that there wasn't anything, and now they're going to hope maybe there is, and hopefully it'll make them feel better. So I think it's dangerous to be sitting on the fence in this situation. That's what I think about atheism versus agnosticism. And atheism, a mental disease, is the other video you should watch if you want a bit more on what I say about this subject.